A man cut off someone's ear, put it in a jar, and started a war 9 years later. That's number 10 on this list. It gets worse. Welcome to the 10 dumbest wars in human history. These are real. Every single one actually happened. And by the end of this list, you will feel significantly better about every bad decision you have ever made in your life. Let's go. Number 10. The War of Jenkins Ear, 1739. Britain versus Spain. In 1731, a British sea captain named Robert Jenkins was sailing near Florida when Spanish coast guards boarded his ship, tied him to a mast, and cut off his ear. Rude. Unquestionably rude. But Jenkins didn't go to war. Jenkins didn't even go to the press. Jenkins went home, put his ear in a jar, and carried it around for 8 years. 8 years! He just walked around with a jar containing his own ear for nearly a decade, attending dinners, running errands, carrying his ear. Then, in 1739, he showed it to the British Parliament, and Britain declared war on Spain over an ear that had been marinating in a jar since 1731. The war lasted 9 years. It accomplished almost nothing, and it is forever known in history books as the War of Jenkins Ear, because sometimes history just doesn't try to hide what it is. Number 9. The Emu War, 1932. Australia versus emus. Yes, Australia declared war on birds and lost. After World War I, the Australian government gave farmland to returning soldiers in Western Australia. Nice gesture. The soldiers settled in, built farms, started lives. Then 20,000 emus arrived and decided this was their land now. The government's response was to send in the military, actual soldiers with actual machine guns. Major G.P.W. Meredith was put in command of the operation. He had fought in real wars. He had seen real enemies. He was now in charge of shooting birds. The emus turned out to be extraordinarily difficult to kill. They scattered whenever they heard gunfire. They split into small groups and regrouped elsewhere. They kept moving. They kept coming back. The soldiers fired thousands of rounds. They killed a few hundred out of 20,000. Major Meredith eventually withdrew and submitted his report to the Australian government. The report essentially said that the emus were winning, and he was leaving. He was sent back. 3 weeks later, the emus won again. There is a quote from an ornithologist observing the operation who said, and I am not making this up, that the emus could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. The emus are still there. The farms are still there. The Australian military never officially won the Emu War. It is listed in Australian military history under losses. Number 8. The Pastry War, 1838. France versus Mexico. A French pastry chef was living in Mexico City. His name was Remontel. He had a shop. Soldiers, the accounts vary on exactly whose soldiers, came through and ate his pastries and left without paying. Remontel did what any reasonable small business owner would do. He complained to the French government. Revenons. The French government sent warships. Now, to be fair, France had other grievances with Mexico. There were unpaid debts. There were diplomatic tensions. The pastry chef was not the only reason France deployed a naval fleet to blockade the port of Veracruz, but he was the reason they called it the Pastry War. Mexico refused to pay compensation. France started shelling Veracruz. Mexico declared war. Actual war was declared because of pastries. The conflict lasted several months and ended with Mexico agreeing to pay France 600,000 pesos in damages. 60,000 pesos of that went directly to the pastry chef. He got paid. He got paid an extraordinary amount for pastries. Somewhere in history there is a French pastry chef who complained to his government and accidentally started an international war and then received the equivalent of a small fortune in compensation. He is the most successful complainant in human history. Number 7. The War of the Stray Dog, 1925. Greece versus Bulgaria. A Greek soldier was chasing his dog. The dog ran across the border into Bulgaria. The soldier ran after the dog. Bulgarian border guards shot the soldier. Greece declared war on Bulgaria. 2 countries went to war because a man chased his dog across an international border. The League of Nations intervened and ordered Greece to withdraw. Greece withdrew but was required to pay Bulgaria 45,000 British pounds in compensation. Nobody has ever confirmed what happened to the dog. The dog caused a war, the loss of 45,000 British pounds, and an international diplomatic incident, and then apparently just disappeared into history. Somewhere a very good boy has no idea what he started. Number 5. The Football War, 1969, Honduras versus El Salvador. Let me tell you about the moment a football match ended with two countries invading each other. Honduras and El Salvador had existing tensions, immigration disputes, land disagreements, the usual. They were scheduled to play each other in a World Cup qualifier. 3 matches, different venues, neutral ground for the final one specifically to prevent violence. After the first match, riots. After the second match, more riots. After the third match, El Salvador declared war on Honduras. The war lasted exactly 100 hours before a ceasefire was called. It killed approximately 2,000 people. It displaced hundreds of thousands more. It destabilized the region for years. It resolved none of the original disputes. El Salvador won the football match, though. So at least someone got something out of it. Number 5. The Pig War, 1859, United States versus Britain. The American-Canadian border around San Juan Island in the Pacific Northwest was disputed. Both American settlers and British settlers were living on the same island because nobody had quite decided where the line was. In June 1859, an American farmer named Lyman Cutlar looked out his window and saw a pig eating his potatoes. He shot the pig. The pig belonged to the Hudson's Bay Company, a British company. Britain threatened to arrest Cutlar. American settlers demanded military protection. The U.S. Army arrived. The British Royal Navy arrived. Both sides pointed weapons at each other across the island. For 13 years. 13 years of two armed forces on the same island. 13 years of pointed rifles and loaded cannons. And in all that time, not a single shot fired. Not one. They apparently spent the time having joint dinners, celebrating each other's national holidays, and drinking together. The pig remains the only casualty of the Pig War. The pig, and whatever dignity both governments had at the negotiating table when they finally sorted out the border in 1872. Number 4. The War of the Golden Stool, 1900, Britain versus the Ashanti Empire. The Golden Stool of the Ashanti people was not just a chair. It was believed to contain the soul of the entire Ashanti nation. It was never sat upon, not by chiefs, not by kings, not by anyone. It was carried above the ground, so it would never even touch the earth. The British governor of the Gold Coast, now Ghana, attended a banquet with Ashanti leaders and reportedly said he wanted to sit on the Golden Stool. Just wanted to sit on it. The Ashanti went to war. The British eventually exiled the governor. They never got the stool. The Ashanti hid it, and it was never surrendered. Britain technically won the war militarily. They gained nothing they came for. The governor never sat on the stool. The stool is still in Ghana, still unsatiated, still containing the soul of a nation that refused to let a British official use it as a chair. Number 3. The 335 Years' War, 1651 to 1986, Netherlands versus the Isles of Scilly. The longest war in history. 0 casualties, 0 shots fired. 335 years. In 1651, during the English Civil War, the Netherlands declared war on the Isles of Scilly, a small group of islands off the coast of Cornwall, as part of a naval dispute. Then everyone got busy. The war ended informally. No treaty was signed. Nobody noticed. For 335 years, the Netherlands and the Isles of Scilly were technically at war. The residents of Scilly had no idea. The Netherlands had no idea. History had quietly filed it under forgotten and moved on. In 1986, a historian discovered it. The Dutch ambassador traveled to the Isles of Scilly and signed an official peace treaty. The mayor of the Isles of Scilly reportedly joked that they could now finally sleep soundly knowing the war was over, a war they had never heard of, that nobody fought, that lasted longer than most civilizations. Number 2. The War of the Oaken Bucket, 1325, Bologna versus Modena. Two Italian city-states, neighbors, long-term rivals, and one day soldiers from Modena raided Bologna and stole an oak bucket. An oak bucket from a well. Bologna demanded it back. Modena refused. Bologna declared war. The Battle of Zappolino followed, one of the largest medieval battles in Italian history. Approximately 2,000 people died over a bucket. The bucket is still in Modena, displayed in the Ghirlandina Tower. 7 centuries later, in a tower, in a museum, is a wooden bucket that started a war and was never returned. It is not a remarkable bucket. It is a bucket, but it has been the subject of international dispute, thousands of deaths, and 700 years of territorial pride. The bucket won. Number 1. The Kettle War, 1784. Netherlands versus the Holy Roman Empire. The most efficient war in human history and the most embarrassing victory. The Holy Roman Empire wanted to reopen the River Scheldt to shipping. The Dutch had closed it. They sent a single ship to test the blockade. The Dutch fired one warning shot. The shot hit the ship's kettle, one cooking pot. Nobody was killed. Nobody was injured. The kettle was destroyed. The Holy Roman Empire declared this an act of war. Formal negotiations began immediately. The Dutch paid a small compensation. Peace was restored. One shot, one kettle, one war, 0 deaths. Historians named it the Kettle War with complete seriousness. That is its official name in historical records. The most decisive, quickest, most casualty-free war in the history of armed conflict was fought over a cooking pot. And remember, at least you've never declared war over a kettle. Probably.